The No Fate channel, checking in. Jonathan here with some very sad and disturbing news. Day one, event one of the CrossFit Games has seen an athlete drown. Now, I want to go into how it happened, give you a bit of backstory on the CrossFit Games and the other swim events that they have had, and discuss mainly who's at fault and if they should continue the rest of the CrossFit Games. Before we get started, I do need to let you know this video is not monetized. There are no links in the description. I just really feel like I need to talk through this. So for those of you not familiar with CrossFit, it is a sport where literally their motto is every second counts. So you try to do events, physical events, as fast as humanly possible. And the CrossFit Games is the equivalent of the Super Bowl for CrossFit. It happens once a year, and by the time the athletes get to the CrossFit Games, they have already proven themselves to be the best in their region and in their section throughout the previous rest of the year. So these are literally the best of the best in terms of athletes. Now, in previous years, they have had swim events in ocean. They've had swim events in lakes, and they have had swim events in pools. And in some of those years, they have had to pull out contestants for having issues. I think specifically the ocean swim, which was probably the most difficult of them all due to the congestion of the athletes as well as the amount of waves that they were facing. I will say that in today's event, it's called the Run Swim. They needed to run 4 miles for time and then immediately jump into the lake to do the swim. Now, as you can imagine, with a triathlon, if you're not familiar, the swim is always first, so the contestants are 100% fresh. The problem with the swim on a triathlon when it goes off first is that all the contestants are at the starting line, so you get a lot of congestion and a lot of potential kicks in the head, and it's frankly, I would imagine, hard to follow individual contestants throughout the beginning of the swim part because they're so tightly packed together. In this situation, the contestants were not tightly packed together. They were spread out due to the fact that they had to complete a 4-mile run to start. And the individual who drowned, sadly, I'm not going to mention their name. It is listed out in public, but it doesn't actually impact today's video. There's no point in mentioning it. Was in the front of the finisher pack. So this person wasn't lagging behind. This person was not having trouble immediately in the swim. It was towards the end of the swim where this person had trouble. And unfortunately, you've got to ask yourself if they should have ever had a swim event after any type of physical event previous, whether it was a run or a bike or even a row, because in any type of physical event, if you have trouble, if your heart rate is through the roof, if you can't breathe, you could simply just stop. But if you're in a swim event, if you stop, you will sink. And in this situation, unfortunately, you can find the video, and I would recommend not watching it. It is extremely sad. The swimmer in question was clearly having difficulty. Now, this swimmer was swimming between literally two lifeguards, or the equivalent of lifeguards, that were on paddle boats whose job was to monitor the swimmers. So much so, this person was having such difficulty that a spectator from the shore saw that this person was having difficulty and literally jumped in attempts to try to save them. And the two lifeguards that were on paddle boats, I don't know if they were just watching the finish, because again, it was close to the finish line, or if they were out to lunch, but they clearly missed it. And by the time that they realized that an athlete was missing, by the time they got to where this person was last seen, they didn't have enough time to find the person, and they have drowned. So as far as guilt, as far as who's responsible, I personally would put at least 95% of this horrible situation on the emergency staff that was in the water, and that was literally between this individual, because on the video that I saw, and again, please just don't search it. It's not worth the depression that it's going to bring you. This person didn't just go under. This person was clearly struggling. They were not making any forward progress. They were clearly just fighting to stay afloat, and it's an extremely sad situation. Now, I do think CrossFit does have some of the blame. I think they had all the good intentions to have a safe competitive event. But when you put a swim after a run, even though it helps negate the issue of so much congestion at the start of the swim, it still puts the athletes at a massive risk because, as you can imagine, every second counts. They're doing a 4-mile run as fast as they can. Some of them have probably finished that race and their heart rate might be 160, 180, even higher. Who knows? And it's just an absolute shame that this person had to lose their life for what seems like the fault of the immediate emergency staff that was standing right there on their paddle boats in between this individual. Now, they have canceled the rest of day one's activities, and I want to talk about should they go on with the CrossFit Games for the remainder of the 3 days that they had planned, Friday, Saturday, and the final events on Sunday. I think as a fan, as a spectator, I would be okay if they just said, listen, it's just too much. We're going to wrap it up. We're not going to have the games. We're going to just cancel it outright. But unfortunately, I think from a financial perspective, I don't think I'm going to assume they're going forward with the games. CrossFit makes a lot of their money for the year on the CrossFit Games. It is their Super Bowl. Not only do they have video rights that they have sold to, I'm assuming, ESPN or the like, they also make a ton of money off the live stream as well as use it for marketing for the rest of the year. Now, as far as the competitors are concerned, I'm sure there are some competitors that are distraught, that they knew this athlete very well and frankly don't want to continue. However, I have to imagine that most of the athletes there do want to see the games continue, because you have to remember, these are not only the best of the best, these are the most competitive athletes across the world. Some of these athletes have been dedicated their entire life to trying to get to the CrossFit Games and win, and have come from all different parts of the world to Texas in order to compete. So I got a feeling that many of them are going to want to move forward even after this tragic event. Let me know in the comments below, who's at fault? Okay, who do you think is at fault? And I know it doesn't do any good for the athlete who drowned, but it's just something I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I just, on one hand, I'm thinking CrossFit for bad programming, and on the other hand, I'm thinking, if you've got 2 safety personnel in the water, they should have eyes on people that aren't doing well. Just as a reference point, I have done 1 triathlon, and I am a horrible swimmer. I swim like a rock, and when I did this triathlon, the lifeguards in the water noticed that I was having trouble. I was having a ton of trouble. I was having trouble to stay afloat. I actually had to do the back float for a while just to kind of catch my breath. Not 1, but 2 different lifeguards offered me platoons in order to, rescue myself, to save myself. But I said I was okay. And from that moment on, they literally followed me until I was out of the water. If the person on the shore can notice that someone's having difficulty before these 2 lifeguards did, that were between the poor athlete who drowned, it is clearly, at least at some point, their fault. Let me know in the comments below, do you think the games are going to go on? Do you think they should be just outright canceled? And whose fault is this? It's just been a crazy day for me in terms of seeing this horrific news and trying to make sense of it. And hopefully you guys can understand this video, which is different from my normal content. If you haven't already, call your loved ones, hug them if they're close, let them know you love them.